for Podcast Nitty Gritty, talking about editing and gear and tools and resources. And yeah, we should go around and introduce everybody else that we've got with us today. We are hoping that we're going to have Katie May join us before too long. So hopefully we will have a fourth panelist. But why don't we go and introduce our other two panelists for today? Let us know who you are, where we can find you on the internet, and about what you do in the podcasting world. And let's start with Noelle.
Hi, I'm Noelle Cherie. I am at Noelle Cherie on Twitter, and I am on the Dames and Dragons podcast, which is a D&D 5e actual play. And I am the editor and the music composer and sound designer, I guess.
Yeah.
The sound man. And yeah, so.
Great. And Brittany.
Hi, I'm Brittany Leonagay. You can find me at Brittany Lee on Twitter, Brittany Leonagay on Instagram. I am the editor / producer / sound man of D20 Games. Yeah, I also by day work for Facebook Gaming and stream sometimes at fb.gg/Brittany Games.
There you go. And again, I'm Eugenio. I'm DM Jazzy Hands, and I am the DM and sound man, I guess, for The Last Refuge, which is also a D&D actual play podcast. Okay, before we start our conversation, a couple of reminders. First of all, this whole weekend of PodJam 2021 is benefiting the Trevor Project, a really amazing LGBTQIA youth support organization saving queer lives across the country. So if anything, if you find anything this whole weekend thoughtful or helpful, or you learn something, or even you just smile, we are suggesting a $5 donation as your sort of ticket to PodJam, and that will go to the Trevor Project. You can hit !donate for the link to our Tiltify. I can't really see the Tiltify bar on my setup very well, but I'm sure Celeste will let us know in the Zoom if we have some donations to celebrate. But definitely do that if you feel that anything, if you enjoy anything about this whole weekend. Yeah, and also we are giving away, Penwitch Studios, the producers of PodJam 2021, is giving away a copy of the McElroy's book, Everyone Has a Podcast Except You. We're giving away a copy every single panel, so keep an eye. Mods will let you know how to enter and details about that when the giveaway opens up. Okay, I think that's the housekeeping. So let's get started. So what are we talking about today? We're going to talk about all of the specific tools. Let's call them tools, right? Because that can encompass software, hardware, resources, all the things. The tools that we use to get our podcasts out there. And I sort of let the panelists know I've kind of broken it down into three-ish areas that we're going to talk about. We're going to start talking about the actual recording. Then we'll move on to the editing and the cleanup of audio process. And then there's the part of podcasting that's actually getting the podcast out there, the hosting services, the marketing services, all of that kind of stuff. So we'll start with where it all starts, which is getting the audio recorded. Why don't we go down for the three of us and just sort of, if you all don't mind, a quick rundown of some of the gear that you use. You can get as specific or not as you want, but just sort of let people know what you use in your setup personally for your podcasts. I don't care who starts.
I'll go.
Great, thanks.
So on Dames and Dragons, I think a lot of, I mean, not all, but a lot of the D&D podcasts that are out there, people are each in their own space, each player, each host. For Dames and Dragons, we actually generally are all in the same room. Oh, so cool. We have a little bit of a different setup than a lot of places do. Although we did record from home for 2020. But yeah, so we have a mixer here, which let me look at it. It's the Zenix Q 1202 USB. So basically it's our thing that this plugs into the computer and the mics all plug into the mixer. And we come out with one already mixed sound file. So we can't interrupt each other, which is the downside, but it also takes way less time to edit, which is really nice. And then, yeah, we have switched mics a few times, but right now we're using Rode Procasters. So
okay, all right. And I see you've
here
got
she
the pop
is.
filter in front of it.
Yes, a pop filter. I don't have a what's it called, windscreen, because they made the consonants mushy.
Yep. And then it looks like it's on an arm, not on the. I know I'm getting weirdly specific.
No,
and we'll talk about what all of this
and
means in a minute. But
yes.
And we'll talk about what all this means for those of you who are 101ing this. I promise we'll get to details. But so it looks like it's an arm, not a desk, sitting on your desk.
Yes, yeah. It is like attached to my desk, but yeah, sure. It's not like a free wheeling thing that I can move around. Although we did use those for a long time, and you can hear it every time anyone in the room or city moved at all. You're clatter, 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 clatter.
Yeah.
So I'm very relieved to have this. Yes.
Cool. All right, Brittany, how about you?
So for D20 Dames, we do the whole everyone's in their own place. So my setup is specifically my own, although we did start all pretty much with very similar setups. We all had Yeti mics, which were solid. I decided to get super fancy one day, maybe a year ago. I think it was like deep into pandemic, and I was just like on Sweetwater, just clicking,
just like looking for dopamine anywhere you can find it.
Exactly. I was like, upgrade. And then the next week I was like, one more. Okay. I upgraded to an SM7B mic, the Shure. And that requires a lot more stuff. You need a thing to make it powered, and then you need a thing to go into the computer. So
like a preamp and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
exactly.
okay.
So and then like the cloud lifter to give it more power, because it's not a powered mic like the Yeti is, where you can just plug it in through USB. So anyways, usually all these things you can get like kind of packaged together. It'll say like, people who bought this buy this. So the internet will help you. But I have been loving that. That is basically the only upgrade I've done. Everything else, my boom arm is the same. I just have different things to connect the microphone a little bit differently. And I right now I'm recording in, this is like my office, but it's like in the basement, so I don't have too much dampening stuff around me because it's pretty solid down here. It's not super echoey. There's not a lot of I was gonna say there's not a lot of windows. There are 0 windows. So I don't get like outside noise, plane noise, anything like that typically. So
that's nice.
Yeah, which some members of our podcast have a lot of that. So everyone's setup kind of looks a lot different.
Yeah, we also started in person and did not have a mixer, and our first several episodes still to this day sound not great.
Same.
And we joke about it, but now our cast has sort of split up across the country, so we all also like D20 Dames have our own setups. I am still on the Blue Yeti, but have also been clicking around to see where we're going to end up. But for right now, I have the Yeti with their Procaster arm. I do have a pop filter that I'll pull in front of the mic when I'm recording for podcasts, because it's much closer to me, and the gain is turned way down when I'm doing podcasts as opposed to streaming. Right. And I'm trying to think if there's any other. Oh, I do have a little bit of, so I'm also in sort of an office, but on the second floor of an apartment building. So I do have some dampening panels up, mostly just in corners, sort of by the window. I'm really lucky. My apartment and this office is carpeted, so that helps a ton also. But yeah, I think that's the relevant stuff about my setup. So let's talk about what all these things are. So we all have different mics, which is awesome. Somebody who is starting a podcast, what do they need to look for in a mic, right? Because there are 10,000 options. And even if you break it down and decide, I want an XLR, which is, I want, one that isn't a USB mic, or I want a USB mic, even within those categories, there are 1,000 choices. So what are the things that we need to look for for a beginner podcaster in a microphone?
The one piece of advice that I will give is, and this is why I love the Blue Yeti, is having the gain controls right on the microphone or easily accessible. It's surprisingly important because, me, it's really quiet around me. So I can actually have my gain turned up a little bit more. And the gain is basically like, how much is your microphone going to collect sound, essentially. So if it's turned really, really far down, you'd have to be really close to the mic to get, you know, the sound to come through. And if you're back here, it's probably not going to pick up what you're doing back here if your gain's down. And if it's up, you can probably do stuff back here and it'll pick it up. And it'll be super loud when you're up here. So why that matters for me, or at least for the podcast, is for me, I could actually have my gain turned up a bit and be back here because there's not so much sound around here. But for someone, I will call out Jen Vaughn, who is in their closet and like trying to do all these like wild I called them out because, you know, they said it in chat.
Perfect.
But you know, because I remember they're in an apartment that had like this bathroom fan that would turn on every now and then, and you can kind of hear it hum. So in those cases, you could just turn your gain down a bunch and then just eat the microphone. And so it will only pick up what you're trying to do and it won't pick up the stuff around here. And so having that control is surprisingly important. Now you need to like remember to do it, of course, and then there's only so much I can do on the editing side of things, but if everyone has that control, it's really, really awesome. If you don't, and you need some such sort of software to do it, or you want to try to do it after, it just makes it so much harder. So that's the thing that I would say. And for me, it's not on my microphone exactly, but it's on my thingy-mabobber here. I'm going to use a lot of technical terms, by the way.
Yeah.
Thingy-mabobber is like a square box and it has the knobs. That's what you need to know.
I love it. I love it. All right. Noelle, what would you advise folks look for in a beginner mic?
Well, you know, I would say the most important thing is, even if you're like us, please, you should all get your own mic.
Oh, wow. You know what? That is a really good piece of advice. Yes.
I think
the
even
omnidirectional pick everybody up is never
going to work. It doesn't end well.
You are not a doo-wop group. You can't do it. It's not, you're not a barbershop quartet.
And your friend is going to be like, they use this in the theater all the time. It picks up all the little orphan kid extras, and it's not the same. It's not the same. So, and then you have to live with that for the rest of your life. So, yeah, I would say get your own mic. The mics that we upgraded to from our little omnidirectional thing were actually like $12 mics from Samson, but like still the boost in sound quality was so huge. Yeah. And honestly, they didn't sound too bad. But yeah, I think I would say you can use a fairly cheap mic if you guys are loud and you're close to your mics and you're keeping track of if you need to be more or less gain in the recording. Yeah, maybe have somebody listening. We also didn't do that for a long time.
No, for sure. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. What should you look for? Just that everyone has their own mic. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
How did I not start there? That's such an important part.
I clearly I didn't think of it either, but and also clearly we've all done it.
Yep.
Yeah, for me, I think it's I mean, you all covered most of it, and so I guess my little piece of advice is, you know, actually as long as it is a mic and you can get close to it, you know, when you're starting out, it's sort of okay. You don't have to spend hundreds of dollars on it. You can get a mic that has the things that we've talked about, you know, has a gain knob for not a ton of money. And then you can find ways to make it sound the way you need it to sound, at least at first.
Yeah.
Are there any other, so for example, for you, Noelle, since you are all together, you have that mixer, and that is absolutely necessary and instrumental for your setup.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk a little bit about what that is, and recommendations you might have for that for groups that, you know, in the before times and hopefully in the future times play together in person again for their podcasts?
Sure. I think so. We still are using the same mixer that we got back in the day.
Love
it's a Behringer, I think is the brand, Xenix, and it does the job. I've been thinking like we should probably upgrade, but it's just like it's not as exciting as getting a new mic. I don't.
Sure.
I barely want to look at that thing.
What are you like, if you're like, oh, we should upgrade, is there something that it doesn't do that you wish it did?
Sure. So it has like inherently a little bit of grounding noise. And it always has,
interesting.
by which I mean like a grounding hum. So for people who don't really know, the little like hums and little like shh noises will become your worst enemy as a sound editor.
Yeah, we'll talk about that when we get to the editing
and you
portion.
You will fly into just incandescent rages. If like oh my god, like one time my friend was like like I just want to leave my fan on, and I was like, if you do that, like I'm gonna come to your house and you're not gonna like it. But but anyway, so yeah, that mixer, it has like a very slight hum, and actually it's not so much of a problem. You mentioned that you have a cloud lifter, which gives you extra gain, which a lot of and by gain is basically volume before it goes into the computer. It gives you extra gains, which you need for a lot of fancier mics. And for these mics, we have FET heads, which is like a similar thing.
Cool.
And yeah, so that has helped, because the louder you are above your ground hum, the better your audio is going to sound. If you are close to the sound of your background noise, or close to the sound level of your background noise, it will be a problem. But yeah, it's nice to have a mixer in some ways. Like I said, you cannot interrupt each other, so that's a big a big downfall. And also, you can get your levels wrong for each person, because everybody talks at different decibels as well.
Sure. So I am seeing in the chat, and we should have done this anyway. Let's step back a little bit and just define a few of the terms that we're talking about, because Definitely. I realize we've got all sort of experience levels. So one thing that we've been talking a ton about is gain. And Brittany did a quick drive-by definition of it, but just to expand on it a little bit, since we're talking a lot about it in this recording part, the idea is another way that I've heard gain described is basically the radius away from your microphone that audio is captured. So if the gain is turned way down, just want to make sure mine is before I do this, then you want to get pretty close to the microphone, because it's not going to really catch you if you're too much further. On the other hand, you all can probably hear my fan now going on. I have a little tiny little desk fan pointed away from the microphone, but I've turned the gain way up, which means now there's a great big radius around the receiver part of the microphone, and everything in that radius is getting picked up. So when we talk about gain, it's not, a lot of folks will compare it to volume. It's not exactly the same. It's sort of how sensitive and how far away from your mic you can be. And so being able to control that is not about controlling your volume. I really have to fix this. It's not about having to control your volume. It's about the sensitivity of the mic, because that is going to pick up a lot of other things that Noelle just mentioned, things like white noise, background noise, hums, things like that. So that's a little bit of more about gain, since we've mentioned it so many times.
Yay!
Also, we have a new guest joining us.
Hooray!
Hello. I was on an urgent podcast mission, but I've returned victorious.
Well, the best of reasons. Hi there.
Hi.
Why don't you? We were just defining some terms that we've been tossing around, but why don't we? So perfect timing. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie May. I use she, they pronouns, and I am the creator and original editor and producer for Dungeons, Dice, and Everything Nice, a Chicago podcast featuring local comedians, all non-binary and women, who just do a lot of queer pining. That's it.
Love it.
So,
Yep. Into it. Great show. Will you tell us a little bit, the first thing that we talked about, will you tell us a little bit about your personal hardware setup, your microphone and anything else that's around you for recording sessions?
Ooh, yeah, absolutely. So I am a graduate of the Blue Yeti. I switched about 3 months ago to the Wavelength 3. And it's internal.
That's by Elgato, right?
Yes. So this is Elgato's Wavelength 3. And it's internal software, and I can talk exactly about exactly why I made the switch. And I love that so much. I use Audition for all of my editing right now. I made the switch from Logic Pro about 8 months ago, and before that I was in GarageBand, so it's been a navigating journey. Oh, I mean, when you're in college, like that's what it is.
That's my
GarageBand.
exact life story you just described.
Perfect.
Yep.
And now I'm here. So I actually it's really nice because with the Elgato, I just have to have it and an occasional pop filter, and I'm ready to go. It's really nice.
Great. I love that. Cool. Are there other Brittany and Noelle, since you were here for the earlier conversation, are there other, did you happen to notice in chat, are there other terms that you want to go over and define a little more clearly before we use the wonderful segue that Katie May just provided and start talking a little bit about software and the editing side of things now that we've done recording? Before we move, is there anything else we feel like we want to clarify? Trying to also check in chat and see if anyone has big questions about stuff we've said, but it doesn't look like it.
One thing in chat that I actually noticed that I wanted to mention, I think someone said, oh, we didn't hear your fan when you turned the gain up. And that reminded me of something else you should think about, which is we're on a Zoom call right now.
Oh yeah.
Which does things to the audio. And so it probably was detecting background noise and removed it. And so if you're pulling your recording from Zoom, you're going to get all this processing and audio stuff that you probably don't want or need or understand that's happening, and you'd have less customization for it. So there's just another note. We can talk about that in the editing, but it reminded me because I think that's probably what's happening, which is right. Super smart, but that also means Zoom might be taking out highs and lows of things or clipping off some of the things that you're saying, or whatever it might be. So
yeah, and what a great segue. Speaking of audio processing and where you're recording your audio and what you're doing to it, let's get to that. So now we know, get a mic, fiddle with the gain if it has a gain knob, test it out. And now where does that audio go and what do we do with it? So why don't we, just like we did with our microphone setups, can you all just real quick let us know what you use to capture and edit your audio? And let's
Can I do a controversial ask?
I want nothing more than for you to do a controversial ask right now.
I know that some of us also do live production on Twitch. So can I hear like your different avenues for both? Because I know that I have different pipelines for both. So if you do it different ways for each, I want to hear about it. I want the hot goss.
In terms of like software and capture, or in terms of hardware and gear, or both? Like
software to capture, because I know for like live production, we like run through Crisp and through blah, 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 and we do, it's all navigate. So I just want to hear the hot goss, how y'all doing it. I want in.
Totally. I love that. So if you do both, let us know what your differences are. I love that. Great. Thanks. Yes. See, I told them all that this would be a conversation and that I'd ask questions when there was a lull, and that was it. So I love it. Yeah. Okay. So do either of you do the live production stuff?
I don't. I mean, I stream, but
yeah, I was gonna say I also stream, but
my stream is like, can you guys hear me? Am I on mute? Like sometimes I'm just on mute for 20 minutes and I don't know. Like that's
I don't know how, but I'm always on mute.
I know, right? For like, I know I become like such an audio snob during podcasts, and then for streams I'm like, well, if you can hear me, I've done it well enough.
Right, exactly.
Truly. Like, I doesn't, for some reason, like I think my brain space for like my video and my lighting takes over, and so anything sound related, I'm just like, is the game too high? Not game, but game. Is the game audio too high, or are people on mute? They don't need to be. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But I can talk about my for the podcast, how
before you do, I just want to say, hey, thank you so much. We just got a bunch of donations, and I think we're now at $420. Our goal is 500, so we should absolutely hit that goal during this panel, please and thank you. Remember, we are raising money for the Trevor Project, really awesome LGBTQIA plus youth organization, saving lives, saving queer lives, young lives. So thank you so much. Hit !donate in the chat to get the link to donate. And if you've learned anything, if you've smiled once, if you're enjoying this, consider our suggested $5 donation as your sort of entrance fee, and we appreciate it. Okay, Brittany, go ahead.
I'm loving if you smiled once. I think that's a great bar.
I stole that from Celeste. That's not mine.
Good. It's so good, of course.
There's somebody watching right now like, no,
I don't know.
Won't do it. They won't take my money.
Yeah. So our recording has pretty much stayed the same since we started. We started out recording remotely, and then pandemic, and we were like, we know how to do this, great, and we still do that. We record all of our tracks individually. And I think all of us use Audacity, which is a demon software. I will admit it does a lot of weird things. It also looks like hot garbage. And I know that and I get it, but it does what it does very well, which is record a track from your microphone and doesn't do any weird settings. I think earlier on, some of us were using GarageBand. I was definitely using GarageBand to edit, so no shame. But yeah, we all did make faces when people said GarageBand, but it's free. And it looks cool and nice and easy. So we use that, but GarageBand was like, I remember Kat was adding like all these effects that she couldn't figure out how to turn off. And it was just so bad. But Audacity doesn't do that. If you just open up Audacity and don't touch it and just press record, like it's pretty solid. It does crash, which happens sometimes. So I would always tell our players to just like keep an eye on it. Because if it crashes, you probably can still grab all the audio that it recorded, but you got to start it up again. Sometimes it's so unfortunate when that happens, but it does. And then I edit in Audition. So I graduated from GarageBand, a season of GarageBand, straight to Audition. Didn't turn back, did not pass go, all the things. It's been such a dream. It used to take so long to edit in GarageBand. It takes so much less time. It's amazing now in Audition. And there was one other thing that I was trying to... There's one other piece of the puzzle that I feel like I'm missing.
I'm trying to think of what else we do.
I remember. We use Discord to talk to each other. So some people use Zoom, some people use Discord. We use Discord because we use this funky little tool that is also a demon named Craig, and it's a plugin. And Craig basically just records your audio channels, and it's terrible because when he comes on, he sounds like a robot, and it's hilarious. And also, he sometimes just pieces out of the channel, and so he stops recording. So that's terrible. Cool. But as long as we get that first like 5 minutes, it's okay. But another cool thing that Craig does is Craig will also record individual people in the audio channel of Discord. So
are you real?
This is a real thing. This is a real thing. So, also chat. Yes. Agreed. Yeah, Audacity has been doing some weird privacy stuff. Totally. You can also find like really older versions of Audacity that still work just fine and don't do all that strange stuff. So yeah, great call out. But yeah, Craig, I'll find it and I'll put it somewhere. I'll put it on my Twitter. Because once you just install it, got to give him some access to your Discord channel, or your server. But he'll record. I keep referring to him as he. It's a robot, guys. Come on. But he'll record individual tracks. So sometimes Jen will be like, "Oh, poop, Audacity messed up, and I don't have the last 30 minutes." And hopefully, if Craig didn't leave the channel, I actually have the backup from Discord. So I can pull that down, and it's an Audition. It's an Audacity file too, so then I can just grab what I need. Yeah, it's pretty great. When it fails, it's terrible because then I truly don't have anything to back up. So I just keep my fingers crossed. But yeah, that's what we
start naming my software so I have a name to scream when it does something weird.
It's really nice. It's really nice. Put the blame.
Love it. Noelle, what do you use? What do you all use?
So when we record here, I use Logic to record just because it like has never crashed on me when we're recording, and that's my number one.
How nice.
My number one, which Audacity has crashed on me. I always mix up Audacity and Audition. I'm about to like get it wrong like 70 times, but I really did mean Audacity that time. Okay. So we generally record in Logic and then I export it out of there, and do mostly editing in Audition. There are some tools in Audacity that I can't let go of. So depending on how I'm feeling about how persnickety I want to be about the audio quality, I tend to prefer the noise removal tools in Audacity to the ones in Audition. So I sometimes am importing things into Audition and then exporting them after destructively editing them. But you know what? We all have crosses to bear in this life. So, but I do the majority of my editing in Adobe Audition, which does cost money for those of you who are thinking, oh, wow, they all use Audition. there must be no
we do not.
downsides. And
Cool.
yes.
Do you have a backup recording going? Like Brittany mentioned, Craig.
That would be such a great idea.
We leave
Excellent.
it to fate.
Got it. Terrifying. Katie May, what do you use?
So I'll answer that question first. So what we do
Okay.
for backups, because I didn't have a Craig until this very moment. So I had something incredibly worse, and I'm going to tell you what it is. We
yes.
elected
So
a quote unquote time daddy for each podcast, and so
That's great.
what their job would be so what we would do is we have a very specific system. So it would go, the time daddy would say like 3 2 1, we'd all press record, and then time daddy would say 3 2 1, and then we would all clap. And then time daddy at the top of every hour would be like, stop, save, break, stretch, because that's important for players when we're playing
Yes.
sessions for me.
My time daddy. Wow.
And then we come back in, and then time daddy starts it all up again, and we've saved our audio so we know it's working, and we don't
Nice.
have anxiety attacks. And so that's how I handle that backup audio situation.
Great. Hey, you've made it work. I love it.
Yeah. But okay, so for podcast recording, I'm gonna run through it. But what I'm also gonna do is I'm gonna stop and talk about each point where I've spent money and why, because I think it's important, because when people started, like, I understand people start this and they can't spend money on it, right? And so each of the things I've done, like each of the times I've spent money on it, it's been incredibly purposeful. So for podcast recording, we actually record in Whereby, which is $6.99 a month. So the reason that we don't use Discord is because I actually find that it leads to less stable audio for my players. You know, they have a lot harder time connecting and getting their microphones to work at the same time. I find that Whereby works best, way cheaper than Zoom. So it's like $6.99 a month, whereas Zoom is like $16. So we save money that way. So we meet in there, we record from there. We all record through Audacity. We have Time Daddy lead us through our journey. And then after that, we put it all in a Google Drive file. I pay for that little extra Google Drive amount every month. It's worth it. Then I actually used to produce it all myself, but let's talk about what happens as you become more successful and find that you can't do that kind of stuff anymore. So as of late, we actually, to spread out the load, we then have someone who who is sort of like audio dad. You can kind of get the naming convention here. So we have someone called Audio Dad, and what they do is they download all the audio files, they sync them up, they remove all the cuts, they remove all the breaks, and then they pass it off to another person on our team who is the dialogue editor. That person pulls it up, and then they go through, they chop it up, right? They kind of arrange it for tone and pace. And then they would pass it to me, who had been the editor for the show so far, all those custom like sounds and music and pacing. I would do my pass, but now that I'm running 3 shows, right? Like I couldn't spend like a 16-hour edit. Like as much as I loved that was my love language for that show, I couldn't do that anymore because it wasn't healthy for me. So we did that. I would cut my time spent from, in audition also, which it would be a shame if like you had already graduated, but like you put your Adobe, like your college email in Adobe, and then like you only pay $20 a month. That would for the entire suite. That would be like so bad.
It'd be like so dishonest. Really I don't know like who would do that.
So yeah.
And what then a great system.
I spent what is this, 150 on the Stream Deck, because let me hold it up to my let me hold it to my webcam. I have actually, because I have ADHD, like I'm memorizing hotkeys, not me. So I actually gamified podcast editing, And I've arranged it all into buttons on my Stream Deck. I don't know if you can see the little Pokemon GIFs. So I actually have, yeah, I actually have a completely set, I can just sit here like this and edit a podcast.
Whoa.
I actually have I don't know if I can pull it without ruining my setup, but I have a similar situation on my Stream Deck. I love that.
Yeah.
Nice.
So run through that. Then we use Simplecast, $15 a month, in my opinion, the best uploading suite. The sound effect websites I pay for every month. Let's talk about that. I pay for Zapsplat, which is like this quick European, like $4 a month. Just like your nitty gritty sound effects. I pay for splice.com, which is actually made for music developers. But what they do is they give you samples that music people take to then create into their own songs. And if you try a little, you can usually create some kind of music of your own, which is really cool and great. But then you have custom sounds that like no one else in the podcasting universe has, and that's like your claim. You have that. And then I also pay for Envato, which was like as I could grow and be better, because it's $23 a month. But it has custom music and then an entire suite that I also use for streaming, right? Like the add-on, like video production, stock footage, graphics, fonts, all that kind of stuff. But that was like when I could get there and do that. So that's my production cycle, and that's like where I spend money and why, because I try to pay attention to that as a creator. That's me.
That's great. Yeah, we talked a little bit in the last panel about how important it is to divvy up responsibilities, production responsibilities, and wow, what a perfect example of that going right. That's awesome, and I definitely took notes.
It's so funny. It's so funny that you have your audio dad, who does your initial cut, because we actually have we were. In terms of delegating responsibilities, we were lucky enough to hire on Rudy Basso as our producer to do that exact job. But he is our manager of management, of course, our mom.
That's fun. Manager of management. I love it. I love it.
You know, podcasting is a family.
That's right. That's right. We also use Audacity, and that is where I learned audio editing. So I still use Audacity to edit because we're 4 years in. We are coming up on, we're probably within a couple of seasons of the end of this sort of campaign arc. So I'm gonna tough it out. And I do have,
oh, I forgot audio plugins. Did we?
Audacity as well.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
ooh, you got like the big.
The lighting in here is terrible, but I had raised, I had saved money for a small one, and then the amazing community that I have in my Twitch channel was like, you need a bigger one, and did it was very sweet.
That's so good.
So we use Audacity to capture, we use Zoom to communicate, and I record all the Zoom calls. That's our backup because Zoom records individual channels in audio. So if one person's Audacity decides to poop the bed, I can just pull that person's, and I don't have to sort of try and play the awful, pull their speeches out of a big mass file. And there was another thing that I wanted to mention. Now I don't remember what it was. So we record and edit in Audacity. We use Zoom to communicate. And since Katie May started bringing up sort of other things that we pay for and other resources, and we'll come back if you two have, Brittany and Noelle, if you have anything to add here. But in terms of other stuff that we pay for, we actually are a patron of one of the composers that we use a lot of music from. That's Scott Buckley. He's fairly popular in a little subsection of the podcast world. He's got a great Patreon that lets us feel, his stuff is actually for the most part, free for use, but we want to support where we can, and so we're one of his patrons. We don't do a ton of sound effect stuff, although lately I've been getting a little more into that. We mostly use freesounds.org and give credit if that's a thing, or Creative Commons 0 for just casual sounds. We used to use BattleBards a ton more, and we would pay for their services. BattleBards.com has everything from soundscapes, background music, and sound effects. that you can sort of buy each file from. And then we use, and we also try and give little monthly sums to this service. We use Kevin MacLeod's music on Incompetech for a lot of our background music. So those are some of the things that we pay for. Anyone else have stuff that they want to bring up for part of this, for this sort of editing software subsection of our panel? We got about 20-ish minutes left, a little bit more.
Yes. What plugins do you pay for? Do you pay for any?
Do we? No, I don't actually think that we do.
Okay.
I'm going through all of what we use. Go ahead, and I'm going to keep thinking.
So the ones that I've paid for, I hold out every year. And the reason I wanted to make sure when I agreed to do this panel, I was like, remember to bring it up. So I want to make sure that I don't forget, because Isotopes, RX8, vocal like writer, will save you hours in the studio every fucking time. It's my ride or die. Like
you want to shout that name out again so everybody can write it down now that they know what it is.
It's the Isotope RX8, I believe. There's a bunch of like shitty audio garble words after that. I'm not going to remember those right now. But here's the thing. It's usually like hundreds of dollars. Oh. I got it a few years ago, 2019, I believe. Black Friday, $49. When they run sales, they cut them down. And that's why, so I was like, I know it's coming up in a few months. Keep your eyes out, like budget for it. If you're a small podcast, nice. $49 there in November. See if you can grab it.
Awesome.
The other thing that I pay for, and this is a little bit different. So this is for Death's Divinity, which also goes up in a podcast form.
Right.
But since it's a weekly show with like a much longer time, we have to prioritize efficiency rather than like beauty and a final cut. Mm-hmm. Because we're professional adults, you know? So what we actually do is thanks to our Death's Divinity patrons, we love you so much. We have the ability to pay for so Discord, we just talked about that. Discord runs a native software inside of it when you're in voice calls, and it's called Crisp. So we actually pay for the standalone version of Crisp. So that when we are in voice calls, no matter where we are in, that Crisp is being applied to our audios.
Cool. And so it's making just everything sound better.
Yep. It's doing that initial full cut for me. Right. It's removing the air conditioning noise for everyone. It's prioritizing noise for everyone. And that is a lot of money. I think we just had to like agree to pay, I think it's $460 annually for each individual seat. And that's not a small amount of money. Right. And I completely recognize that. And like, so thank you to to the patrons who can make that kind of thing happen. Right. Because like, otherwise it's labor hours for all of us, you know, who are trying to make it. And so that's how we can pay for that. And I greatly appreciate it. So that's a bit how the different processes work, right? Where it's more, you can have the time to be gritty, but then like you're maybe making a bit more money, but you have less time. And so you have to prioritize differently.
Nice. Yeah. Any other software stuff or resources for recording and editing, Brittany and Noelle, that you want to talk about? I wish we could like do a whole breakdown of like what our editing processes, our production processes are, and like, but we got an hour.
Right.
And I do want to have a little time at the end for the hosting stuff. But before we get there, Brittany and Noelle, any other recording and editing stuff you want to highlight?
Do your noise reduction first.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
I use Audition's noise reduction. I think it works really well. I've done a lot of tweaking with it,
nice.
But the process, I do it on each individual track, and it's the first thing I do. And I just spend maybe 30 more minutes while I'm editing to do little things like clicks and whatever. Also, this is something about microphones. The one thing that I do not like about that Yeti the mute button is the clicky. It's so funny.
It's so
when
loud.
you mute and unmute, it's the loudest thing. And it's like you'd think anyways. So it's just like the bane of my existence. So little things like that help save an editor if you have a quieter mute button, or you can do it on the software side of things. I wanted to mention really quickly the extras that we use for D20 Dames, which is we use Tabletop Audio, which is a freaking awesome service for like when you're just playing home games and want some background audio. They're great. They also have a Patreon, which we are a patron of, and we've reached out to them and just asked. It's a single dude who does all this stuff and just said, hey, we have a podcast, we'd like to occasionally use your stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's great. And then we're like, we're also going to be a patron. He's like, okay. So just, try to pay people when you can, if you can. But it's great because especially if you're a patron, he'll make tracks and they're 10 minutes long, and it'll be like forest night or whatever, and it's sound of the forest, but then some of them have music underneath. And for patrons, you can have the music only version, you can have the ambience only version, or you can have both of them layered together, and it just gives a lot of cool. like options. Nice. And sure, other people can have it, it might sound the same, but for me, I love it. And I actually have been using that as I'm editing and crunching things together. I'm actually layering that on at the same time, because I am the sole person to do the editing. So there is no like many passes for me. I could do that, but I try to keep it to one pass so I don't lose my mind. So I've been doing that at the same time. It's been saving me so much time. That's so great. Yeah, plug to Tabletop Audio.
Nice. Yeah, cool. Okay. All right. So I know there are 1,000 questions just from what we have talked about so far. But hey, there's going to be the VODs of this. So you can go back and I'm going to go back and rewatch and take notes about some of these resources. But I do want to do, so we did the recording part, we did the fixing up what we've recorded part. And now I do want to spend a few minutes on the how do we get it into other people's ears part. So can we go through real quick, and can everyone let us know what hosting service you all use? And if you want to take a minute and let us know why, if you have a particular, reason for your preference, let us know that too. Why don't we start? Let's start with Noelle if we can.
Sure. Well, I don't want to brag, but for a long time we used SoundCloud to host. And
that was the first thing I was going to say. Don't start there. Everyone starts there. Don't start there.
And the main reason for that is that we were fucking stupid. So, but after about like the 15th like news headline we saw that was like SoundCloud shuts down tomorrow, we were like, we better switch. Bye. So we're now using Buzzsprout, which I like pretty well. The only thing about it that I would advise people about is that it uses its own, it gives you like your stats, but it is only through them. So like you can't there's a service called PodTrack, which is free, and that's what I think most people use to track, or a lot of people use it anyway, to track their stats for who is downloading from all the different podcatchers. Which is kind of like, you have to do that stuff just so you know. If you've never hosted a podcast before, iTunes isn't sending you your numbers, you have to get them yourself.
Yeah, actually that's a thank you for that, because that reminds me, I should say, what are we talking about? So once you have your finished episode audio file, you have to have it hosted in a place where you can create a little RSS link, a little link to that audio file. Then that is what gets passed out to Apple Podcasts and Stitcher and Google Play and all of the things. So that's what we're talking about, is what sites, what services we use to host our audio files that we can then send those RSS feeds through. Cool. Brittany, what do you all use for D20 Dames?
Yeah, I mean, something we learned early on too is that you're sometimes paying for two different services here. You're paying for a thing to host the files, which costs money on servers for people to, for a service to host your files. And then you're also paying for the feed and distributing it and having all those stats and all the things. So that sometimes comes at like two different costs, and you can have some places package it, some places you do hosting on one place and the feed on a different place. So what we looked for was something that just did it all, cheap, because we just were starting out. And so cost was like the biggest factor. And then because I didn't know what the hell I was doing, ease of use was the next thing. And I really wanted to try, I was really interested in Libsyn, but Libsyn was expensive at the time. I actually don't know how much that is now. And it was old, and it was like the Audacity of podcast hosting. It just, I didn't understand. It had like 1,000 things, and the menus were really hard to navigate, and I couldn't figure out what it was for. And it was just really difficult. So we didn't go with that. And I kind of regret it. And the reason I regret it is because Libsyn has been around for a long time, and they're not going to go anywhere like SoundCloud and all the threatening of SoundCloud being taken down. And we ended up going with a place, and I like them. It's feed.press. They're fine. They're good. It's great. I'm pretty sure it's also just one dude. And the reason I know this is because we've had issues with them, and their support is sometimes so slow. And it's so important. Like, if you're paying for a service, to make sure that you have access to when things go wrong. I uploaded the file and it's just 404ing. What's going on? Oh, well, 3 days later, I learned they had an issue and they fixed it, and now it's working. But like, the episode's supposed to go up, right? So that ended up being a big factor into why we started looking for other hosting. We haven't yet. The other thing about hosting is it gets really complicated to switch hosts.
It can be real, especially depending on where you started. They kind of make it impossible for you to transfer where your feed's coming from, where the files are hosted, all this stuff. So not to scare anyone away, but do your research and just try to get something good. And whether that's a thing that's going to be around for a long time and not just shut down on you, really good support, easy to use if that's something, or if you're just a techie person and you can handle lots of menus that don't make sense, great, go with Libsyn.
Or if you're an adrenaline junkie, go with SoundCloud.
If you never know if your podcast will still exist.
You want pain.
Go.
I love that.
Live on the edge.
By that I mean blood pressure. All right, Katie May, what do you all use?
We use Simplecast simply for the aesthetic. I prefer it.
Nice.
Its recasting isn't the prettiest thing I've ever seen in the world, but is all right if you need it. I then use short.io to generate our pretty links, right? So, we have like pod.deathdivinity.gay/01.
Nice.
That would be, ours. That's how we get it looking pretty. That's what we feed the link through. I just really like, if you're playing the social media game, right? Like that preview, how that preview looks is important.
Yeah.
And so it's for that reason that we kind of navigate towards Simplecast.
Cool. Speaking of how much of a nightmare it is to switch your hosts, we had to do that. So we thought we were real clever, and we started by hosting on Squarespace along with our website. It seemed like such a good idea at the time. It wasn't, for a lot of reasons, not the least of which, and this has since changed, I have recently come to learn, but way back when we started, Squarespace would only host up to 100 posts, because we were basically creating a blog of our episodes, and they only hosted 100 posts at a time and would start taking down old ones once we got to episode 100, which I discovered late one night when someone sent a DM to the Twitter account saying, "Hey, I can't find the first episode and I really want to start at the beginning." So here's my 3 a.m. panic. So we are now with Podbean, which we do, like Brittany said, we are now paying for sort of two separate things, but we're with Podbean. I like them a lot. They're really pretty simple. They're pretty user-friendly. The interface is easy for us. They do a reasonable job of collecting stats and stuff. The truth for our podcast is that we have grown really excitingly, but we still don't, we're not sending our download stats to anybody for sponsorships or things like that. So we want our analytics, but we don't need a super specific breakdown. I think you can sort of pay a higher subscription tier for Podbean to get more specifics, but even at the basic hosting tier, we do pretty well there. And so that's what we use is Podbean. Cool. We got about 4 minutes left. Are there other big pieces of advice, thoughts, recommendations for anything of this nitty gritty? I wish we had 3 more hours, but we just don't. So last thoughts?
I would say, in terms of, and this is purely like an audio related a piece of advice, I would say no matter what kind of podcast you're making, maybe plan to do like, if it's going to be episodic and you need to start at the beginning, maybe plan to start with like a short arc that's going to end in like 3 episodes. And then you will have learned so much by the end of editing those 3 episodes that then your beginning of a long thing can be really good and decent. And you won't have people 5 years later being like, wow, you've really improved.
Like we do. Yeah, that's funny. We had a very similar suggestion in the last panel, which was do a couple of recordings and episodes that you don't even think you're going to release. Because if they're terrible, it doesn't matter. And if they're great, well, cool. That's some Patreon bonus content later on.
Totally. We call those prequels, and they're terrible, but they're so much fun stuff. So we had to put it out there. Also, I would recommend the whole microphone talk we had at the beginning. Microphones are expensive. We didn't talk about how much these things cost, but I appreciate, Katie, you were mentioning like where you've invested. It's a huge investment. I am a huge proponent of AirPods or earphones that have a microphone attached. If you are going to be the editor of the podcast and you have no idea what you're doing, I would recommend get your group together. Don't invest in microphones. Just do headphones that have a mic attached, whatever you have, and then try to edit that. And just see, because it doesn't matter.
You learn so much.
You'll learn so much before everyone goes and invests so much money into the equipment itself. Just everyone can record. You already have the tools to record today, and there's free tools to do it. So just try it, because then you'll know what you want after you do that.
That's great.
That's a good point.
Any last thoughts, Katie Mae?
I don't know. I know
so many. I know.
I remember, keep your eye out. I know that this is so silly. Start saving now.
No, it's
right.
True.
Your little like Patreon like funds, like start banking them, because like you're going to be able to invest way more on, as toxic as this is, Cyber Monday and like Black Friday. If you're like an indie like creator, like that's super important. So like be smart with your money, start saving now. You got this. I believe in you. That would be what I gotta say.
I love that. And I think my little parting thought is, there's a lot of us out here that have been doing this for a while, and a lot of us are excited to grow the community, and so we're willing to help out. But on the other hand, I will also say, remember that a lot of us who are out here doing this are professionals at it. And so you should feel free to reach out and get in touch and ask questions. And also remember that a lot of us do this as part of our income making. So if you do want help and advice from other members of the community, that's awesome. It's a great community. Think about finding Patreon links, Ko-Fi link, coffee links, whatever you call it, Cash App links, because this knowledge is valuable, and we are appreciative and we want to share it. That's why we're all here today. But also, we spent money and time learning these things and are happy to share them, but also value us, please. And thank you. Cool. Thank you all so much. Really, really quickly, because we are about at time. Can we just go around one more time, let everyone know where they can find you and your projects on the internets very quickly? And why don't we, do we want to go in reverse order from the way we started? So do you want to start us out, Katie Mae?
I can. Hi, I'm Katie Mae. You can find me at Twitter at OKKatieMae. We just started. We're 4 episodes into the first all fat, all queer Dungeons and Dragons homebrew show. It's called Death to Divinity. If you go to deathtodivinity.gay, you can get in on the sauce.
.gay?
Oh, yes.
Hell yes,
y'all
dude.
Go check. It's so good, you all.
It is good.
Nice.
I love it. Brittany, I think, is next.
Sure. Hi, I'm Brittany. I have been Brittany. I am Brittany. At Brittany Lee on Twitter, at D20Dames on Twitter, d20dames.com for episodes and stuff. You can also find me at fb.gg/BrittanyGames, where I stream games sometimes, not as much as I want to, but I should. And then also, I forgot to mention at the top, twitch.tv/gamers table. Every other Tuesday I play Star Trek Adventures. It's a really, really fun game. Every episode we do, we're like, that was our best episode. It just keeps getting better. It's super fun. It's an all femme cast. It's so much fun. Oh my gosh, please check it out. Gamers Table on Twitch.
Love it.
Nice.
Noelle.
Nice. Hello, I have been Noelle Cherie. My podcast is called Dames and Dragons. You can find it at damesanddragons.com. There are many shenanigans, much sarcasm, and all kinds of wild pranks. We just recorded and I'm worn out.
Yeah, I feel that.
In a good way, in an amazing way.
Of course, of course. And I am and have been, I love that, Eugenio. You can find me on Twitter at DM Jazzyhands. You can find my podcast, The Last Refuge, over at DND Last Refuge. We are coming up on we're recording our 200th episode on Tuesday. I'm very, very excited about it. It's going to be wild and super fun. Thank you all so much. One more time, we are here. Well, I'm not. Pod Jam is here for the next 2 days from 10 to 5 Pacific, raising money for the Trevor Project. Incredible LGBTQIA+ youth organization, really helping save lives, saving queer lives. So if you have learned anything, if you have enjoyed this at all, not only should you ask us questions and hire us as consultants, but you should also donate here. We're suggesting a $5 donation if you've learned anything at all, but of course any amount is super helpful to the Trevor Project, and we very much appreciate you. All right, we are done here for this. Thank you all so much. I know there was so much more we could have talked about, but you three have been absolutely incredible. I have learned so much, which I told the PodJam folks when they reached out to me about this. I was like, yes, and I will take notes the whole time. Stick around, get up, do a bio, get a stretch, whatever you need, but then come on back, because coming up next is podcast marketing and social media secrets, more inside information, important stuff. So stick around for another awesome panel. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of PodJam 2021 and have a good day, everybody.